So we are not the office that you come to meet with, to either go over your financial aid offer, maybe share some circumstances in your family that are changing and looking for additional financial aid. That's the role of the One Stop Student Services Center. It opened about 2 years ago on the first floor of the Wilbur Cross building, so that's where you guys would go. They take walk-ins Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, phone calls, emails, you name it. But so our behind-the-scenes office is responsible for administering financial aid for all of our campuses and all of our students, and I mean all of them. So everybody in stores, Hartford, Avery Point, our law school, School of Social Work, our School of Medicine, our School of Dental Medicine, all of that financial aid is under our responsibility. But Kyle had asked me to come and talk just a little bit about financial aid, about the process, and then I only have 10 slides. So I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions. If I'm unable to answer it, right, that happens sometimes. I would ask that we probably don't talk about your personal circumstances in this group. So I'm just going to get started. Oh no. Come on, guys. Off to a great start. All right, so our agenda, and also too, if you want, I can share this with you after.
That was great.
Okay. So first we're going to go over what is financial aid, how to apply for it, what types of financial aid are available. One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Has anybody heard about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act? Okay. You guys are going to hear, some of you may hear a lot more about it when you get your student loan debt letter that we send out in March or April, because we've got some information in there that's going to be impacting you about One Big Beautiful Bill. And then I'm going to open it up for questions, so we'll go from there. All right, so one of the misconceptions about financial aid is that it covers the entire cost. It does not. Financial aid is there to help reduce the financial burden of attending college. It does not cover the full cost. And we try to be as transparent as possible about this. It's not, I would love to work at a school that met the total cost of attendance. That's my dream job for retirement, is to work at a school that has so much money that we can meet the needs of every single student. I don't think it's going to happen, because I'm getting very old, but that is my dream. But anyway, so it's not going to cover your tuition fees, your room and board, or if you're living off campus, your off-campus housing expenses, your food, your other educational expenses. It's just not going to. But hopefully what it does is gives you some funding to make it possible. And then financially comes in the form of grants, scholarships, work study, and student loans. Oftentimes people do not think about student loans as a form of financial aid, but it actually is. It's the least desirable form, but it is a form of financial aid. All right, so how do you apply? You must apply for financial aid every single year. For most students, you're going to fill out the free application for federal student aid. And the key word is free. There are some scams out there that will try to get you to have to pay to fill out the free application for federal student aid, but you should not be paying to fill out the free application for federal student aid. It is available at studentaid.gov, and hopefully those of you who are interested in financial aid have already done that for the fall of 26. Our on-time deadline is February 15th. Why do you want to hit that deadline? Because you want to be considered for all forms of financial aid. If you file after February 15th, there is an opportunity to appeal, but it does require you to do more action. Who wants to do anything more? Just fill it out, and hopefully then we can tell you what you qualify for. The FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, does open on October 1, along with our institutional aid application for our undocumented students. Now that is specifically for Connecticut undocumented students. So if in the audience we have an undocumented student that's from outside of Connecticut, this form does not qualify, or you do not qualify to fill out this form. We only have institutional need-based financial aid available to our in-state undocumented students. And those students are also charged in-state tuition, which is wonderful. Believe it or not, that was not always the case. It wasn't until, I think it was about maybe 2015, please don't quote me on that, I know you might be recording this, but it wasn't that long ago that our undocumented students that live in the state of Connecticut, go to high school in the state of Connecticut, So that is the case now, and they are also eligible for need-based financial aid consideration. That form is on the University of Connecticut Financial Aid Office website, and I've provided a link. And like I said, I'll share this with Kyle, and you guys can, so this way you don't need to write anything down, okay? But every year, do this every year. Even if you don't think you qualify, let us tell you what you qualify for. And the best reason why I say this is, goodness, God forbid, should something happen in your family and you have a change in your financial circumstances, or maybe a change in your household, you want to be in a position where you can come into the one-stop, we have a financial aid application on file, and now we can look and see if there's something we can do with adjusting those data elements and making you eligible for financial aid. So that's why I say, fill it out every year. It obligates you to nothing. You don't like what we offer you, you decline it. But just do it every single year. We meaning the University of Connecticut, do FAFSA reminder campaigns and institutional aid application reminder campaigns. So maybe you got an email from the One Stop encouraging you to fill out the free application for federal student aid or institutional aid application, or maybe you saw something when you were eating in a dining hall up on one of the electronic boards. We try to remind you to do this every single year. And like I said, you want it on file so that we can respond to a change in your family circumstances when they happen. I hope they don't happen, but you just want this in place. Just get it done. Cost you no money, no obligation. All right, so what types of financial aid are there? Grants are the best kind, right? You don't have to pay them back. So there's federal Pell Grants, there's federal SEOG, which stands for Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. That's a block grant the University of Connecticut receives from the federal government with rules. We have to give it to the neediest students at our university. So that means it's going to be a student with what's called a student aid index of negative 1,500, the absolute neediest students. Then we also receive a block grant from the state of Connecticut called the Roberta B. Willis Need Grant. Unfortunately, there's a scholarship program with the exact same name. I don't know why they did that, but they did, and they can't change it. But that's a block grant program that we receive from the state of Connecticut, and it comes with rules, and that's only available to our Connecticut students. And then we have university grants. Often what a student will see is we'll send out your financial aid offer with university grants, because we take into consideration our financial aid budget is made up of the federal SEOG, the Roberta B. Willis need-based grant, and university grant dollars. But we're not going to identify who's eligible for those first two until right before the start of the semester. Otherwise, we are constantly swapping this funding out, and it really isn't the most efficient and effective way to manage. So what we'll do is we'll award you university grant for a particular dollar amount, and then once things have settled, right before the semester starts, then we'll swap it with the other funding that we have available. Otherwise, it's very messy if we were to do that in your initial financial aid offer. Now we have scholarship programs. Like I said, the unfortunate name of the Roberta B. Willis Need Merit Scholarship Program. The two programs, you guys, constantly get confused by students and families. Honestly, it's just confusing in general because they have almost the exact same name. So that program, though, is managed by the Connecticut Office of Higher Education. So the student applies through that office, they're notified through that office, and that office tells us that you got that scholarship. All right, so we don't select the recipients, but you should eventually see it as part of your financial aid offer and then actually apply to your student fee bill. Then we have UConn merit programs. These are offered through the admission process. So the undergraduate admission office, when they're reviewing the files for admission during that time in January and February, they're going to consider students. They don't need a separate application, which is wonderful. I love that. But they're going to consider students for the various UConn merit programs that are available. Once the student is offered that merit program, though, and they come to the University of Connecticut, then the financial aid office manages the renewal of that. Right? Those require the student to be full-time. They require the students to maintain satisfactory academic progress. And we will manage that renewal. We don't award them, so we don't select the recipients, but we will manage the renewal of those programs. So you may hear from us about those after you've gotten here. So then there are departmental scholarships. These are typically a donor gave money to the university, and now the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences is able to offer this out to a student. And again, they may confer with the financial aid office because maybe the need of the student, the financial need of the student is an eligibility criteria, but otherwise they are managing those funds, and they'll let us know when they've selected a student. And then of course there's always outside money. Outside money. This does not often reduce what you've been awarded in financial aid. The first thing that the financial aid office is going to do with an outside scholarship, let's say you got something from your high school, maybe from your parents' employer, civic organization, we're going to apply that to the unmet need. So remember how I said I really want to work at a school that meets need 100%? We don't, so there is a gap between what you're eligible for and what the university has funding for. The first thing we're going to do is take those outside scholarship dollars and actually apply them to them. It's not until your need is fully met will we then look to maybe reduce your work study. Maybe we will have to reduce your subsidized federal direct loan. It isn't until everything is met that we would ever begin to look at reducing your need-based university grants. So please, outside scholarships genuinely only help you. They reduce what you have to pay. And then self-help. This is in the form of federal direct subsidized loans, federal direct unsubsidized loans, federal work study, which I don't have listed there, I apologize, and private loans. Now, federal work study is funding that we receive from the U.S. Department of Education, and basically think of it as it has a matching component to it. So for every dollar a student earns in work study, the federal government is paying 75 cents and UConn is paying 25 cents. Now what's good about work study is it seems like there's many more opportunities for work study jobs as opposed to what are called student labor jobs, but you earn a paycheck for the hours you work. They are not applied to your student fee bill. It is pocket money, it truly is. But there are more opportunities, unfortunately, you guys, that are available through work study than there are through student labor. All right, so one big beautiful bill. This is going to be the bane of my existence. It was signed into law on a federal holiday. Yes, July 4th, 2025. And they have not released guidance to us, but we do need to implement this July 1. So I was just telling some of your colleagues, I was at the Federal Student Aid Conference last week, and they still don't have guidance for us to implement on July 1. They're hoping to get it to us by this date, which would be spectacular, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if any of you lived through what was called FAFSA simplification here at UConn. So if how they rolled out the new FAFSA is anything like how One Big Beautiful Bill is going to roll out, I'm very nervous, very, very nervous. But the significant changes that I wanted to talk to you guys about today that are going to impact the federal Pell Grant program, something called loan reduction, and then also the Parent Plus loan program. All right, these are all implications for undergraduate students, so I wanted to go over these with you. All right, Pell Grants. So in the past, federal Pell Grant was considered an entitlement program, and a student could have a full ride scholarship. So let's say they got the Madison Square Garden Scholarship that covers absolutely everything, because it really does exist, and they received a federal Pell Grant. They could actually get their federal Pell Grant on top of that full ride Madison Square Garden Scholarship. No longer. No longer. It is no longer going to be, in my world, I've been doing this for a really long time, considered an entitlement program. It may not exceed the cost of attendance. We are still waiting on guidance though, because I have heard through the rumor mill, if we open up $1 worth of cost of attendance, the student could get their full Pell. It doesn't sound right to me, but I'm hopeful that that's actually the case, because I don't understand why we're going to change this program so significantly. But again, I've complained, and I apologize about complaining, but this is a very difficult year. but we don't have guidance yet. So hopefully when they give us guidance, we will actually be able to reduce a full scholarship by $1, and then the student can get their $7,400 federal Pell Grant. That would be amazing. The other thing that they're doing is they're changing it so you may or may not know this, but federal Pell Grant through FAFSA simplification was changed to be based on poverty guidelines. So it took household, the number in the household, and the family's total income to determine if the student was eligible for federal Pell Grant. That was it. What they were finding was, in rare instances, students were what they were referring to as Pellionaires. So they had very small incomes. Think about the whole family. I'm not talking just about the student. They had very small income, but they had significant assets. And the student aid index for that student was in excess of the cost of attendance. So that means that family could more than absorb their entire educational expenses. But based on the poverty guidelines and the family's income and household size, they were still eligible for Pell Grant. So they're changing it so that the maximum student aid index, not only do they still go through the poverty guidelines and using the poverty tables, but the maximum student aid index can only be twice the Pell Grant amount, which is $14,790. It's really not a bad change, because I really think due to the limited amount of funding available through the federal Pell Grant program that is funded fully by the U.S. Department of Education, it really does need to go to the neediest students possible. So I wanted to share that. Loan reduction. I prefer to refer to it as loan proration, but those testing people I was telling you guys about said it is not loan proration, it is loan reduction. But what it basically means is that for a student who is not registered full-time, they may not receive their full annual amount of their federal direct loan. So first-year student is eligible for up to $5,500 in federal direct loan. And if the student is not registered for at least 12 credits each semester, we have to prorate their loan. So think of a student who has an accommodation through the Center for Students with Disabilities, and they have a reduced course load accommodation. Even though we as a university consider them full-time, because of one big beautiful bill, they will no longer be able to access their full annual loan limit in the federal direct loan program. This is of great concern to me. It really can be putting up more barriers for students who are being afforded opportunities, and now we have to do this. So this has never been the case in the past. So again, we don't have guidance to know exactly how it rolls out, but it is something we're going to have to do starting July 1, 2026. Now the other piece of it, though, that is even more concerning is it may be retrospective. So you may have been enrolled in 12 credits for the fall, but partway through the semester you found that just this one particular course was not meeting your educational objectives, and you've withdrawn from the course. That may reduce your future, your spring, loan eligibility. Again, we're waiting on guidance on this to understand how this will impact our students. When I talked about the loan debt letter that the communication we send out annually, and we tell students how much they borrow to attend at UConn as a way of being transparent, we are going to include some information about this, but again, without actual guidance, we can only speculate on how this will be rolled out. So it is coming, though. And this impacts, I know this is an undergraduate group, but this will impact all levels of education. It isn't targeted at undergraduate students, it is graduate students as well, and our medical dental law, okay? All right, so the Parent Plus Loan Program, this is a loan program backed by the U.S. Department of Education, available for the parents of undergraduate students. They take it out directly from the U.S. Department of Education for their son or daughter's education. So what is happening July 1, 2026 is they are now capping the amount at $20,000 per student. Not per parent, per student. So the student can have two parents each may not borrow $20,000. They may only borrow a total of $20,000 for the one student. Now, the lifetime cap is $65,000, and we all can do basic math, right? 4 years of $20,000 is $80,000. That means that the parent will need to think about, how am I gonna pay for the next 4 years, and maybe I'm not taking the full 20 that I have available to me, because it will cap out then in the final year of only having 5,000 available. Now, there is a legacy provision, so for students who have borrowed or their parents have borrowed in any of the federal loan programs, so that means the federal student loan, the federal direct loan program that's just in the student's name, or in the Parent Plus loan program, those parents are grandfathered in. It's called a legacy provision. And the parent may continue to borrow under the old rules, which is the total cost of attendance minus any financial aid the student was receiving, for up to 3 years or until the credential is completed. If the student steps away, the legacy provision goes away. All right? So just some changes that are coming in the federal loan programs, and this is as part of one big beautiful bill. And now, I open it up to you guys. Come on, ask away. Oh, good.
Hi. My name is Maritha for the minutes. Oh, my Hello. Thank you so much for that presentation. It's incredibly informative. So my question is, so I will be a grad student next year. I'm doing the 4+1 Masters of Public Policy program, and we recently just got an email, because typically that program gives us a full tuition scholarship, and we got an email saying that they can't do that anymore. There's caps on how much of a tuition scholarship they can give out. Could you speak to more about that situation, if there's any details as to why that's happening?
So, I can't. That's actually not administered at all through the financial aid office. That's managed through the graduate school. So we don't select or determine or monitor the spending in that program.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, but don't let that discourage you from asking other questions. I swear I think Kyle told me you guys are asked questions. Oh, I love that. He's like, do not put me on the spot. Kyle, anything? Yeah.
Ask one.
Okay.
So with the loss of federal dollars available, is the university planning any sort of reallocation of its own aid to offset any of that?
So the loss, so the question, what you guys all heard of. So at this point, the university has not looked at ways to mitigate the loss of the loan programs. I do think what's going to happen is private lenders are going to come into the market and try to help bridge those gaps that are being created. I do know, if anybody's ever heard of them, there is a state organization called CHESLA. I think it stands for Connecticut Higher Education Student Loan Assistance. So it's partially backed by the state of Connecticut and through like bond issues. And they are working on creating programs that will be more attractive, maybe not as attractive, maybe as a plus loan program may have been to a family, but they are looking at ways to bridge that gap that will be created by these new plus loan gaps. And then at the graduate level, I didn't cover it today, but they are eliminating actually the graduate plus loan program entirely. There is a legacy provision as well in that program, similar to the one I described for the plus loan, as long as the graduate student remains enrolled and has borrowed in any federal loan program, they can continue to borrow the graduate plus loan program for up to 3 years or completion of their credential. But the CHESLA loan program has always been a decent loan program if you need to go that route when you look at all the different alternative loan programs available out there. Now, on the financial aid office website, if you guys are looking for additional loan options, look at them carefully, first of all, because only borrow absolutely what you need, because you have to pay it back after you graduate. But we do have, we go through a rigorous RFI, public request for information process, to pull together a list of private loan lenders, which Chesla is on that list. And what it does is it offers you the opportunity to compare all these different programs and find out what works best for your family. Like, I don't know what works best for your family, what you would be looking for to meet those different needs. But we do provide a comparison tool and then direct links to the application process. And in that comparison, it compares borrower benefits, like if you sign up for electronic payments, you might lose a portion of your interest, it might go down a little bit. There's different things like that. One of the things, though, that I always say to students is before you go to the private lending market, always exhaust what you have available to you as a student. You should always take out your federal direct loans first. And the reason being is there are a lot of federal protections built into them. I know loans are not desirable, but some loan is okay. You are investing in yourself if you need it. But there are a lot of federal protections built into the federal loans. An example would be during COVID, many borrowers, their loans were in repayment when COVID began. And we all know the havoc that COVID was on people's work and their income. And those loans were put into a forbearance status, and people were not put into default, which means they weren't paying them. So, and that's only because they're federal loans. So there's all these different protections that are built into those, but I do appreciate if people don't want to take out loans, but sometimes you need some loan to cover the bill.
Any other questions? Last call for questions. I'll be talking to the group today, okay, guys? Realize I took it down a little early, so I'm going to give everyone a chance to scan attendance if you haven't already. Anybody still need attendance? Okay, in that case, we just got through public comment and we will move into our reports. First up, I will call on Caroline.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are all doing well and you're taking some time to yourself to enjoy the beautiful weather this week. Academic Affairs just hosted the first of its 3 merit workshops earlier today, and we're really excited to continue supporting students and expanding our outreach in our next 2 sessions, which will cover the topics of workplace culture and overall identity and belonging. In other news, I'm in communication with Canva and our brand partnerships team to coordinate a potential Canva Pro subscription for all undergraduates. We're also currently working on an upcoming financial literacy event with Student Services and a recharge event with the Dean of Students Office that will take place at the end of the year. And then at committee this week, we'll be discussing ideas to improve CSD and the accommodation structure, as well as the new federal policies on student loans, which you guys should all be very familiar with. And yeah, we're meeting tomorrow from 6 to 7 p.m. in 324. So if you guys have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to join us. I'd love to see you there. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Caroline? All right, thank you. Next up, we have Olivia in External Affairs.
Hi everyone. So first of all, clothing closet finally opened last week after a lot of snow. We opened last Wednesday and we are open until tomorrow, 12 to 4 in our new space, which is Wilbur-Cross room 26, which is on the garden level, also known as the basement level. The pop-up, we're doing 11 credits for everyone at the start. Once again, stores undergraduate fee paying students. And then we are working in committee to kind of brainstorm ways we can do more outreach to get students engaged, because I know with the new space, it's a little confusing. Everyone's very used to the bookstore. I don't think a lot of people visit the garden level of Wilbur-Cross. We're trying to get people to find the new space, get free clothing. And then I also we're gonna be finally doing bags, because people are sick of having to put the clothes in their backpacks. So we'll be deciding on a design at our next committee meeting, which is the week after next week. As for the off-campus housing survey, Bailey and Molly made a really great presentation with a summary of the results, so I attached that in my director's report on the agenda if you want to take a look at that if you were interested. I know we went through it at External Affairs, but anyone that doesn't attend, if you want to take a look, I thought some of it was interesting. We also tabled on March 2nd and March 3rd because the off-campus housing fair was on March 3rd, so we both encouraged students to attend that as well as to take our survey. And we got a few more responses, so we'll also be doing some more tabling events before the semester ends for that. And then finally, just an interesting update, I do the Town University Committee where reps from both UConn and the Town of Mansfield meet every other month. An interesting update is Mansfield is almost fully funded to make a multi-use trail that would enable safe pedestrian travel from the Standard and Four Corners to campus. I don't know the timeline on this yet, but that is coming, which I thought was really good, because I know the bus isn't always reliable and it's definitely not safe to walk over there. And that's it.
Were there any questions? All right, we will move on to Jabril and Student Services.
Hello. Okay, so to start off, due to the weather the last few weeks, committee's been unable to meet. So to make sure that some of the future initiatives that I'll explain in a little bit are on time with our purchasing, we're going to have 2 disbursement requests from services go through Senate because services wasn't unable to meet. And other updates, earlier this week, on Monday, me and Venice held the second USG cooking class, which we got a lot of great feedback on. Earlier today, I met with the Associate VP of Student Life and Enrollment, Cindy Costanzo, to discuss the rollout of free menstrual product dispensers, which will launch over spring break in over 100 bathrooms across campus. Very excited to be part of that pilot group, along with other student advocates that I also met with earlier throughout the week. Venice has been working on a financial literacy event in collaboration with Academic Affairs, and a mental health collaboration with the library and Student Health and Wellness. Once we come back from spring break, on Monday we have a ramen bar cooking class, and then period box on Wednesday. So we're gearing up to end the semester strong with the Student Health and Wellness Fair and Suicide Prevention Day as the last few weeks of our terms approach. Any questions? Awesome sauce. Thank you guys.
Next up is Ella, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, so I'll read her report for everyone. Hi all, I've been pretty busy for the last few weeks and working on finalizing all election stuff. There will be 2 election violation hearings on Thursday night, and then the day after, once judiciary approves the results. The election results will be posted in the Slack channel and to all relevant parties. Besides that, the judiciary has continued to meet, voting on voting appeals and election violations. Since we are getting close to the end of the semester, I wanted to let you all know that the judiciary has 4 seniors leaving, so there will be 4 open justice positions. I'm going to post a Google form probably around early April for applications for these positions. And once appointed, there will be a Chief Justice election within the judiciary, probably in late April or early May. Please reach out if you have any questions about the soon-to-be open justice positions and Chief Justice or Deputy Chief Justice positions. and I hope you all have a great spring break. Does anybody have any questions about Ella's report? All right, moving on, is my report. Couple of big things I want to talk about. As Ella mentioned in hers, elections are wrapping up, so a lot of my focus will be on onboarding our new senators who will be sworn in 4 weeks. So that is super exciting to have new members joining us. We're doing some individual meetings and then an orientation caucus on April 1st, which will be optional for all of you as continuing, returning, or outgoing senators. If you are an academic or multicultural and diversity senator who did not run for re-election this cycle, your term will end on April 8th at the conclusion of last Senate. At the end of next week, I will be releasing the intent to run for my position as Speaker of the Senate. Any senator is eligible to run for that role, senators as of after the election results. Yeah, I definitely recommend, if you're interested, taking a look in the description that I send out, as well as reaching out to me. I'm more than happy to meet with anyone to talk about, what I do and what the role entails. That'll be due the Sunday before April 8th, I believe the 5th. And then the election will be at that meeting, and the Senate will elect a speaker. Does anybody have any questions? All right, we will move on to Billy.
All right, hi everyone. I don't have anything written prepared, I apologize. Some updates from my office. We've passed, I believe, approximately $955,000 in Tier 2 funding, which means that I can happily say and finally announce that USG Tier 2 funding is going to remain open to the official closure date of March 20th. So we've successfully had a year open to the day that we said we would, which is really awesome. And that's to the credit of the wonderful USG funding staff and our funding director. So yeah, really awesome, really great. I'm really proud of us, and yeah. Additionally, I've been in communication with Vice President of Student Life and Enrollment, Nathan First, regarding the ongoing developments with the rec center regarding club sports. So we sent out a kind of like a feedback email to club sports earlier this week, asking them to kind of, if they went to the club sports town hall or if they didn't, just to give us some information. What are their biggest gripes? Phoenix gripes with the rec and what they would like to see the rec do in response to the situation, and whether or not they're going to be continuing with affiliation with the rec. So I'll be continuing that conversation with Dean Hannon and Vice President Nathan First. But yeah, those are kind of the two big ones, in addition to just kind of continuing to pass money through committees and approving PRs and whatnot, but yeah.
Samantha, question. Billy, do you mind?
Yes.
Samantha, for the minutes, I have a question in regards to club sports because I'm on a team.
Yeah.
For field hockey, we have a event, I guess, in Virginia Beach in April, but we were just recently told that, like literally just the other day, we were told that UConn is no longer going to pay for our flights, so we have to figure out our own transportation to Virginia. Do you know anything about that or what we do?
This might be a very awkward question. Is that UConn or USG funding staff that told you that? Is that a funding request, or was that like through UConn RAC?
I don't know because I know that our hotel is being covered.
Okay.
But they will no longer cover our flights. I just heard it from our president. I don't know who she heard it from.
Well, I do know that the REC has not used the allocation that they provided to club sports to fund any travel before. So this might be a USG funding staff thing. So if your president could reach out to us, that'd be really great. At bookkeeping at usg.upenn.edu. If it's through UConn program, which it very well might be because we cut off travel quite a while ago, send that to me. Send that to comptroller@usg.uconn.edu. I'll take any information that I can so that I can report this to admin. Yeah, did you hear this from your advisors at the rec, or?
I just heard it from our president. She
Okay.
just told us that it was apparently too expensive, like flights, because they did it last year and it was
Okay.
covered. But she said obviously the prices of flights have gone up because it fluctuates throughout the year.
Of
But
course.
at the moment, they're like double the price that they were last year, so we were told that it's not gonna be covered and we have to drive.
Okay. Have your president get in contact with me ASAP, because hopefully I can answer some of those questions and get some data on that. Thank you so much.
It's not
It's not us. I've just been confirmed. It's not us. Great. Amazing.
Are there any other questions for Billy? All right, seeing none, thank
Thank
you,
you, guys.
Billy. And we will move on to Phoenix.
Hey, beautiful people. I have a couple of updates. For one, Diversity and Outreach Commission just finalized the student climate assessment today. For those that don't know, last year, we started something called the student climate assessment, which we send out to the entire STORE's campus student body, fee-paying student body, so the student body that we serve, through the Dean of Students Office, through the Office of Inclusion and Civil Rights, and other university departments. And the objective is to basically get feedback on how well we're serving students, right? So ask questions about what students think about our programming, our funding allocation, how well our members represent the student body and their needs and their desires. And so that'll be sent out hopefully next week, Friday, if not after spring break. But the objective is honestly, again, to just get feedback for incoming leadership, feedback on our organization as a whole, and make sure, again, that we're just practicing positive feedback loop and making sure we're reaching out to the students that aren't members of our organization. I do encourage everyone in this room to fill it out as well, right? We do want to hear from people that are within our organization, but the objective, again, is to gauge how satisfied the campus is. One of the things that we're doing differently this year is the goal is to get the most amount of students to fill it out, so we'll be sending it through learning communities, unit courses, and also through residence halls, so we're gonna have RAs send it out hopefully. And this just gives a better idea of, number one, how well students know what USG is or what we do, and how good of a job we're doing in terms of programming, funding, and supporting the students and representing the students in terms of policies. And so yeah, the objective is to use that to continue to better ourselves as an organization. So excited about that. The self-defense course is going to be March 23rd, so the Monday after spring break, in Student Union 310. All of the supplies for that event came in. We're collaborating with UConn Safety. They're actually going to be leading the course. Protect Our Pack and Holistic Huskies will also be there to share some resources about campus safety. If you're interested in learning more about safety in general and campus safety, and you want to learn how to defend yourself a little bit better, please come out. There's a registration link, and that will be shared next week as well. On our Instagram page, and again, also on flyers, so be on the lookout for that. We're also in the process of planning our legislative event. Talked about this a little bit before, but the objective is to bring in state legislators, potentially people from Congress, who can speak to how they got to where they are in legislation and provide students with some inspiration and some information on how to start a career from going from service to policymaking. They're also going to be presenting internship opportunities, job opportunities for anyone that's about to graduate or wants a part-time job or a full-time job over the summer. So really excited about that. And lastly, our internal audit, that's something that we did last semester. Essentially, that's for members of USG, how well we function as an organization from the internal standpoint. Are you satisfied here? This is also just to work on our retention and make sure that, you know, every seat is filled. And yeah, so that's something really important to encourage everyone to fill that out as well. And I think that's it. Yes. I want to stop my head today.
Any questions? Okay, we will move on to Haritha.
Hello. Okay. Hope you guys are all enjoying the gorgeous weather. Spring is almost here, guys. I've primarily been working on planning banquet, which will be on Saturday, April 11th from 7 to 9 p.m. I'm sure you've heard about this event a lot, so please, please, please RSVP. The absolute last day you can sign up for the event will be Saturday night. This is just to make sure that we have all the food in place and we have a seat for everyone, because it's going to be fancy. We're going to have like seating cards and everything. Cam just resent the link in the Senate Slack, so do it right now if you haven't already. You can bring a +1. And shout out to Billy and Caroline for helping with the decor and making the event look amazing. I've also been meeting with student leaders across the state in a steering committee for the Connecticut Student Association to put together our foundational documents, and this includes our own constitutional and bylaws. I'll also be working with external affairs for the Writing to Your Legislator event, and Caroline and I are soon to be meeting with the Director of Advising, Erin, after spring break to relay our concerns. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Marika? Okay, last up is Andy.
Thanks, Tommy. On Monday, we had an interfaith iftar, and so that was really fun. Anya was there. We had Hindu face, Muslim face, Jewish face all go and talk, and then we also got to learn about a lot of that one another. We played I think it was Ramadan Kahoot. It was very fun. We also had, I think, second to last University Senate, and so they talked about a few bylaw changes. One of them was to part-time students, because I think if you're a part-time student, they only take your spring semester into consideration, and so if you get like all C's in the fall semester, they get like 1 A in the spring semester, like if you're an A student, and so they did an amendment to fix that. We also had a follow-up conversation with Nathan First about the anti-ICE petition raised. We had student members of the Senate Executive Committee, so it was me, Rosie, who's the student body president from Waterbury. We also had the president of Graduate Student Senate, and then also the vice president of Graduate Student Senate, talk with Nathan First about what were next steps about what we wanted to see on the matter of anti-ICE. And so currently, I think we connected the students who spoke at the Board of Trustees meeting with them, because I think that we've been playing almost a middleman, where we almost are serving as a middleman between the people who wrote the petition and the people who are on the receiving end of the petition. And so we were like, you know what, why not just put them together and have them come and talk to one another. We also had a Tier 3 alumni panel meet and greet, I think 2 weeks ago, and so that was really fun because we had the vice president from 2009 to 2010, we had the president from 2014 to 2015, and then we had the trustee from 2013 to 2015. And so that was really interesting because it was like 10 years ago, and their issue was very different because at the time there were no paid positions, and so everyone was kind of very similar on that hierarchy scale, and so that was fun as well. But yeah, that's our report.
Any questions? Thanks, Andy. Okay, we're going to move into our voting items next. First up is the approval of the minutes from the 25th. Does anybody have any questions, corrections, lengthy discussion on these? Seeing none, I will move that they be approved by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Okay, these minutes are approved. Don't be okay. Okay, our next voting item is a statement of position and a call to action regarding support for Iranian protesters in the Center for International Students and Scholars. I will give everybody a second to scan that if you would like to follow along. All right, Joel, the floor is yours.
Hello. Okay, so some background. I was recently at a Persian Student Association event, and a number of students came up to me, particularly Iranian nationals, who were displeased with the CISS, I am in motion. I don't know how this typo has lasted the month that this bill has existed. In a minute, I'm in motion that every single time a ISSS is mentioned on this document, it should be replaced with CISS, the Center for International Students and Scholars. That's an unfortunate typo. In any event, the summation of support that Iranian nationals have received on campus has been one email sent out by the CISS basically inviting them to like talk therapy, group counseling, stuff like that. No actual like aid. There hasn't even been a follow-up. Again, this is a long situation. They received this email on like January 26th. It's been a long time since then. Keep in mind, these are people who have been unable to talk to their parents. There's no internet in Iran right now. They don't know who's alive, who's dead. They're not able to receive any money from their family. Even if they were, the Iranian rial is worth $0. It's literally worthless. So these are students who are in pretty much dire situations here. They can't go home. They might not even be documented within the United States. There's a lot of them. It's a real issue. And as part of that, I thought it would be appropriate for us as a democratic body to condemn the violence against peaceful protesters and violence against people seeking democracy. And that's the two part of this bill. I think it really speaks for itself. I wrote this before. It's been a long time coming, long time to get through the committee. I wrote this before any U.S. involvement in Iran. I want to specify that. So I'm not here to take a position on that. What I will say is that I don't want to write this bill in such a way that Iranian nationals disagree with it, like that it splits them. I don't want to endorse it. I don't want to condone U.S. action. I don't want to endorse the Shah. I don't want to condone the Shah. Anyway, I want this to be a unifying bill for Iranian nationals, and I think that's the most important thing. It's endorsed by Persian Student Association. If you guys have any questions about it, I'm happy to walk through it, but I really do think it speaks for itself. We talked in diversity, equity, inclusion about the most powerful clauses within it, and tailing those back so it didn't read so much like it endorsed violence or endorsed the removal of the Ayatollah. Again, not that I wanted to read like it condones it, just it's not worth it. That's it. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Joel?
I'm going to motion to amend this, that every single time ISSS is mentioned, it is replaced with CISS. Thank you.
Second goes to Tommy. Any questions or points of discussion on the motion to amend? Is this on the motion to amend? Yeah. Okay. Caroline, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out, just be careful with that motion because it's defined as the UConn International Student and Scholar Services on the bottom of page 3. So just when you motion it, just also correct the name of the organization.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Okay, we will accept that as part of the original motion. Is there further discussion on the motion to amend? Okay, seeing none, I will move that the amendment be accepted by unanimous consent. Are there any objections to the amendment? All right, the amendment is approved.
Yeah, before we vote on this, I just want to make it's not a very powerfully, intentionally. The document basically just says that shooting unarmed protesters is bad. I don't it's not too strongly of a political take. It's mostly about being a thing that Iranian students can rally behind and calling upon the university to more to support them, because right now they've done next to nothing.
Are there any other questions or points of discussion on the legislation as a whole? Last call for discussion on the legislation before we move into a vote. All right, we're going to put this to a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Abstentions? This passes 16-0 to 3. Kyle, Alyssa, and Andrea abstaining. Congratulations, Joel. Next up, I would invite Gabriel up to present a motion to disperse $2,100 from the Student Services Committee's tabling events line item for the Sexual Health and Wellness Fair. Gabriel, the floor is yours.
Hey everyone, again, so these next disbursements are things that were supposed to pass through committee last week, but were unable to because of the weather, so we just want to make sure that they get voted on in time to be ready for those event dates. So basically every single year we have a table with Shaw for their annual Sexual Health and Wellness Fair in the spring. And every year they ask us to give out menstrual products in lieu of our Period Box event, and this is a great event. People always talk to us about our initiatives regarding sexual health, how to get involved, our Plan Bs, and helping them navigate the resources around campus. So they asked us again this year to be part of it. So this 2100 will be going to the typical items, tampons and pads that we usually buy, as well as expanding some things like menstrual cups and different brands of tampons and pads to go along with the changes that we made in our latest hygiene drive event. So I will welcome any questions you guys might have about this disbursement.
Any questions? Points of discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, I will move into a hand vote on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 15-0 to 1, just me.
Awesome.
And next up, Gabriel again with a motion to disperse $400 from the Student Services Committee, tabling the next line item for the library collaboration.
Yes, so this is what I mentioned in my report. It's an event towards the end of April, like an exact date, sometime in the 20s, that Venice is planning in collaboration with the library and Student Health and Wellness. And it's basically just an event about mental health and awareness and discussion about the university resources. So this $400 is going towards some of the tabling supplies as well as the food for the event. And this expected attendance is somewhere around in the 50s, according to reports from Library and Student Health and Wellness. So this is a relatively good price in terms of feeding 50 people and supplies. So I will welcome any questions here as well. Awesome.
Any questions for Gabriel? Points of discussion? All right, we'll move into another hand vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Once again, passes 15-0 to 1, just me abstaining. Congratulations, Gabriel.
Thank you guys. This is the last time I'm getting up here tonight, I promise.
A lot of applause for that. All right, next up, we have a motion to retroactively disperse $5,000 in the funding staff's Tier 2 registered student organization funding line item for the men's competitive ice hockey's Bolton ice rental fall expenses for request number 0853.
All right, hi everybody. This is the first time that something like this has come to Senate, so I imagine it might look a little weird. Let me give some context for this. So the funding staff received a request 0853 sometime back in the fall. Essentially, the men's competitive ice hockey RSO requested kind of year-long services from the Bolton Ice facility from like late fall to the remainder of their season through the spring. The funding staff voted to approve this request, and then the request kind of got bogged down at what's called RSO pre-purchase, which takes place after the vote, after it goes through what's called FO compliance, which is our fiscal officers, our advisors taking a look at the request and saying yes to it. So after the FO compliance, it goes to RSO pre-purchase verification, which means we essentially ask the RSO, hey, you still want this, right? Now, in our funding policies, it actually says that RSO pre-purchase needs to be done 2 weeks before payment is needed. And that's kind of where this request kind of got lost. Is that the RSO didn't complete RSO pre-purchase because they thought that that policy meant that they needed to complete RSO pre-purchase 2 weeks before payment was needed, which is like what it says in our policies. But Bolton Ice rental invoices after all services are completed, meaning they thought that sometime in the spring when they were done with their ice time, they would do RSO pre-purchase 2 weeks before the end of their services. Obviously, that's not what happens with USG funding staff. So we sent multiple email reminders. Granted, they were automated. We sent multiple email reminders to the RSO. The RSO pre-purchase never got done, so we reached out again after our automated reminders and said, hey, you know, this needs to get done. We can't actually approve these services now that they've already passed. So Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the RSO pre-purchase wasn't done until January, right? Yeah, so that meant that the funding staff could not actually fund the request for the months of November and December, we had to go from the day that they did RSO pre-purchase on. The RSO, sorry, I'm giving so much context, but the RSO then appealed to the judiciary decided not to hear it. The RSO then reached out to my office. I met with their RSO leaders as well as their advisor and their coach, and they are in dire need of help for paying for this $8,000 bill that is kind of outstanding. Based on meetings that I had with them and the context of the situation, as well as the discrepancy in our policies, which I completely take accountability for, I think it made sense that we have the facilities or faculties, we have one of the two, to fund this request to some extent, bail out a student who should not be out for $8,000 for a club event, right? So $5,000 is the amount of money that we can fund up to before they reach their $15,000 cap, which is part of our teacher fund policies. So in essence, we are just kind of helping them pay off a bit of this Bolton Ice rental payment, and the rest, I've confirmed with them, the rest will be paid for via their SABS account or their dues. So it's not, the rest of the payment is not going to fall on the student. So yeah, I'm just asking for this to be approved so that we can help an RSO that's in need. Yeah.
I will just clarify before we get into questions that the reason this is here is that the Senate has the sole authority to decide on unauthorized or retroactive purchases. So that's the reason you're seeing a funding request here right now. Samantha, go ahead.
So I work at the ice rink, and my understanding, this is the club team, right?
This is the competitive team, so it's not club ice hockey. It's competitive ice hockey, which I know is part of a larger conversation about club sports. But yes, so this is a competitive sports team, which means that they don't make cuts. They're registered with student activities as a competitive sport. They are not recognized by the rec center. So club ice hockey is a different entity.
Okay, because I was gonna say the club team doesn't play at Bolton, so that's just like what I was questioning. But if
Yeah,
it's
they play at
different, then
Tuscano.
okay.
Yeah.
Sophie?
Hi, Sophie for the minutes. This might be a silly question, but if they're a competitive team, aren't they under UConn athletics?
They're not. So they're an RSL, which means that, so there's like the UConn athletics department hockey team, which is like the athletes that are part of like NCAA. And then, yeah, so like D1, the UConn team. Then there's UConn Club Sports, which is the hockey team that's recognized by the rec. They practice in Tuscano. They're like the next tier. And then there's the competitive team, which is registered through student activities. They're just like any other tier 2 RSO on campus, but they're just a competitive hockey team.
So we have a UConn athletics D1 hockey team, and then we have a competitive hockey team? And they're not the same thing, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they're not the same thing.
Thank you.
This is obviously for the students that did not make the team. No, because they're a competitive team, they do compete with other schools. Yeah, but this is not.
Yeah, no, it's not. There's like, because hockey's a bigger sport, so there's a D1 team, and there's club sports, but then there's a lot of clubs that play competitively, but they're not necessarily deemed club sports, so you can consider club sports like varsity, and then D1 being like NCAA. They still play competitively, so they travel, and it's like club adjacent, but it's a little bit less commitment, and they don't qualify for rec funding, which is why a lot of times they go to tier 2.
There are some other teams, like there's a competitive soccer team, there's, I believe, maybe volleyball, I'm not sure. But there are a few other like competitive teams that are registered through student activities that are not part of the rec and not part of the athletics division at UConn.
Are there any other questions or points of discussion on any other questions? All right, are there any points of discussion on this disbursement? Okay, seeing none, we will move into a hand vote. All those in favor of funding $5,000, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstentions? That passes 14-1 to 2. Dave Silvestri opposed, Alyssa and Kyle abstaining.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Next up, I will invite Andy to present sponsorship of the Protect Public Education and STEM UConn Graduate Workers petition. There are 2 QR codes up here. The bottom one takes you to the petition as a whole. The top one takes you to the specific letter with their asks. Andy, go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle. So basically, a few weeks ago, someone from the graduate union came and asked if they could speak with us about they're in the final weeks of their contract negotiations, and so they're trying to secure a fair and working wage for their graduate students and their graduate assistants. And so the reason that this is being brought under USG, even though this is a graduate issue, is because in a lot of our classes, a lot of our TAs, a lot of the people that help grade our courses are these graduate assistants, right? And as the university looks to create more classes and have more of the workload, because of larger students, faculty will be able to force to hire a graduate assistants. They're going to help them cover the costs and help them cover the work of all these extra students that they're going to have to take in the classes. And so what we're doing tonight is essentially looking to endorse a petition to kind of fight for a safer and more economically just wage and livelihood. And so this petition would essentially just put our name on there and we sign it along with a bunch of other organizations. I think that currently, I looked at the list, they have a bunch of other unions that sign on as well, in addition to UConn's faculty union. So the executive AUD committee has also signed on to it. And so I think it's really important that, especially in this moment when the university is trying to expand class sizes, force us to kind of almost lose a lot of the academic essence of our institution because we have more students, because they're almost transitioning the university to a corporation. I think it's really important that we make sure to stand together and work with our graduate students and our faculty to reaffirm the need for a safe and enjoyable working environment, both for the students, but also for the people that are providing that environment. So, yeah. Any questions?
Questions? Are there any points of discussion? All right, seeing no questions and no discussion, I will move that USG sponsor this petition by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Okay, that motion passes. Next up, I'm going to hand it over to our deputy speaker for this next piece of legislation.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. The next voting item is a statement of position regarding community meal plan swipes, which I'll pull up here, and I'll pass it over to Kyle to present.
Thank you. So this legislation is concerning the meal plans that this university offers to students who do not live in traditional residence halls. So that includes students who live off campus and students in on-campus apartments. So Hilltop, Charter Oak, and Northwood. Those students are not required to purchase the traditional unlimited meal plan, like students living in a standard dorm, which has unlimited swipes, as you all know. Instead, they are given the option to either purchase that at the cost of that, or they can purchase a community meal plan, which is a bundle of 25 meal swipes. That plan costs $314, which works out to $12.56 per swipe. Now, I bought this plan, and like I think many people, assumed that these would be flex passes. But then my card declined when I was trying to buy my chicken. So basically, these swipes cost more than flex passes and have less use than flex passes, particularly for commuter students who tend to build packed schedules, where they are not in residential areas where dining halls are. So what I am calling for is to change those swipes to flex passes, to give more options to those students, and make those swipes more usable for them. The one thing that I will note is that these swipes on the community meal plan currently do roll over if they go unused, whereas flex passes on traditional meal plans do not. However, when buying 25 meals for a semester, that works out to less than 2 a week, which I do think is realistic. And I think that the reason that these swipes go unused currently is the lack of options to use them. So yeah, I am happy to take any questions.
Is this moving forward or just for the rest of the year?
I would imagine that dining services would not be able to implement a change like this mid-year, or for students who have already purchased the plan. My goal would be to have this going forward, starting with the next round of purchasing.
Any last questions?
So this is more so just to clarify, so you're saying that it would keep the rollover policy thing as well, or no?
That is something that I would bring up in dining services, because my understanding of why flex passes and points don't roll over is they are associated with the semester meal plan you buy, which lapses with the semester. Obviously, the main goal would be to have these roll over as the community meal swipes do, because you purchase them directly. With that said, it is my opinion, and that is why I raised the point that I would rather have the more options than the rollover, so that the swipes are getting used and students are eating, which is what I hope is the point of this plan. But I would definitely welcome discussion on that.
Will the cost remain the same?
So that is a good point that you bring up, because Flex Pass meals are currently valued at about $7 usually. But guest admission to a dining hall is somewhere in the neighborhood of 14. So, I think there is an argument to be made either way, but I think even if the cost were to remain the same, students would still be winning with the new arrangement.
Any last questions? With the discussion? Okay, we'll go into a hand vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, this passes 14-0-0. Congratulations.
Thanks, everyone. Our last voting item, which I'll hand over to Phoenix, is an act expanding bylaw 5, accessibility of public documents and communications, to include meeting and event accessibility. Phoenix, take it away.
So essentially, Caroline brought up a really great point to me, 4 months ago, that our bylaws do not specifically outline event and meeting space accessibility. They only outline document accessibility, which basically means taking away all the blue text added here. Our bylaws only require us to have accessible meeting documents, so agendas, minutes, slides, etc. They don't require us to have our meetings and events in accessible rooms, to have closed captioning, to have interpreters, to even ask for if students need accommodations. And so essentially I just expanded on this bylaw and made it a requirement for us to have general meeting and event accessibility guidelines outlined in our bylaws and hold ourselves accountable for that, to make sure that our events are accessible to every single student who pays our fee. And that just, in terms of physical and sensory accessibility, virtual and hybrid accessibility, so if we're having virtual events, still making sure there's closed captioning and it's 100% accessible. And then I also added a section of facilitation, enforcement, and compliance. I feel like a lot of the time, we'll have stuff in our bylaws, but there's nothing in there that says what happens if you don't do it, or anything, and what I'm saying, or who exactly is supposed to oversee it happening. So this essentially just says that directors, anyone that oversees a committee or a voting body is responsible for that accessibility at their specific meeting. And then same for events. If you are hosting an event on behalf of USG, you are responsible for overseeing that accessibility. And then it's not, again, subject to disciplinary action, essentially stated there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I know Gabby brought up some pretty good amendments in regards to adding a section that specifically outlines weather conditions as well, which could potentially go under the like event and meeting accessibility. But yeah, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, Gabby.
Hi, so yeah, I spoke to Phoenix a few days ago when I was looking at Stockman and all that. And so there's two things I wanted to suggest. So one is, and sorry, I'm looking at my computer because that's where I've written down. So one is, so it's in part 7, about physically accessible meetings. I said that I think it could be beneficial to add that whichever room any USG meeting is held in, whether that's Senate meeting, caucus, or even for the smaller like external affairs, you know, and all those, like all the individual meetings like that, it could be beneficial to make sure that they're held in rooms that either have buttons on the doors, which is very rare that they have like buttons over the door. But if not, if it doesn't have that option, then just the simple thing of having a door stopper, even a chair or garbage pillars, just something to keep the door open for physical accessibility options. And then the second thing I wanted to suggest was that instead of just having a recording for like to be able to watch later on for Senate meetings, to suggest if there was maybe an option of kind of like live recordings, maybe just a Zoom meeting or something like that, that would have a chat function so that if someone can't attend the meeting, like myself, I've had, it didn't happen today, but I had the situation, I got stranded in Hartford from class and the bus driver drove right by me and I couldn't get to TNO and then thought I was gonna miss Senate, but I didn't care in time. But either way, if there was that option for times when I really could not make it, that I'd be able to attend virtually and still listen in, still ask questions, things like that. I know it gets a little complicated in terms of for like voting items and things like that, but at least your participation and stuff like that, I think it would be useful and be accessible.
Are there any other questions or points of discussion? Seeing now, Gabby, do you want to make us anything?
Just another clarifying question. What is sensory accessibility in terms of like having a meeting?
Yeah, so honestly, like sensory accessibility refers to making sure the meeting space is like accommodating to anyone that has like that may have some sensitivity issues in terms of sensory. So for example, like not having, if you're having a big event, it's really loud. We did this for Paint Your Story when Jabril and I did Paint Your Story. We had the outdoor space we knew was going to be really loud. And the whole point of the event was to prioritize mental health. A lot of people get very overstimulated in loud environments. So having we had an additional room that was kind of quiet. So in terms of sensory accessibility, things like that. But that can also fall under, again, like the virtual option. Like maybe someone doesn't necessarily feel comfortable going to like a room you're having a big event. And it's like super, super loud. And so may have sensitivity to that. They can join virtually, right? And then that way they can turn their volume down, adjust it how they want. But when you're doing the big events like that, that's just an example of like sensory accessibility, making sure that there's a space that is separate from something that may be super, super loud, or like, if you know how they give like warnings for like flashing lights, things like that, making sure that it's sensory accessible. That's just some examples.
Follow-up question. If like the goal of this is to make things accessible for everyone, which I think is amazing and incredibly idealistic. If two people have like, I don't want to say issues, needs that need to be accommodated, as everyone has needs that need to be accommodated, but they conflict, how do you like work around that or prioritize?
Yeah, I would say it's on like a situational basis. So like I said, for example, like in the scenario of like Paint Your Story, there were also a lot of students who like preferred to be in a more elaborative outside environment that was loud because they needed that for their inspiration, or maybe like they get anxious in quiet spaces. Having two options, which a lot of the time is reasonable, it's totally doable. Same thing with like, sometimes you just kind of have to not necessarily separate the event, but make sure that there are two options, right? Because it's not a rare case scenario, you bring up a really good point, but there's always a way to accommodate. And it's, in fact, a lot of the time accommodating enhances the overall experience of the event. Because there are some students, right, who, like, for example, at Painter's Story, they were having a great time outside, right? And then when they were going to like finish up their painting, they were like, yeah, I need to go inside. Like, this is the part where I need silence, right? Wanting to be out in the more loud and vibrant environment. There was like, at one point, I think there were like a lot of bugs outside, so people transitioned inside when they had food, things like that. Where you're supporting like the duality, right? You're supporting both spaces. So yeah, it's honestly on a situational basis, and I think this legislation outlines that pretty well. Just kind of understanding like, yeah, you can do two things at once, and make sure that every student that's attending is supported in some sort of way, whether that means there's a virtual option or you have a separate room, things like that. So yeah, situational basis, but definitely doable. And you know, when we have to face that, we can kind of figure it out based on the situation.
I also just like to that point, I will say like in terms of accessibility, you don't really run into situations where there are like conflicting needs. There are not a lot of scenarios that I can think of, especially talking about like meeting accessibility, ensuring that there's 3 feet of space and walkways and things like that. Like that doesn't really impede on others' like ability to use the space and interact with our events and our spaces. So I will say that's a lot less common than you would think, and a lot of the accessibility measures that are covered in this adjustment wouldn't happen, really. And I know Phoenix preaches this a lot, but like accessibility benefits everybody, not just people that need accommodations or who have additional needs. So I just also think that's a really important thing to think about, but that really wouldn't happen. It's a great question, but just to kind of ease a little bit, it just doesn't really happen that often.
Other points of discussion or questions? Gabby, would you like to formally propose anything?
Am I just repeating it, or how do I, sorry?
Do you have language written by any chance?
I have it written in a Slack message. I don't know, something like that. Sorry.
If you have it handy and you want to read it to me,
Absolutely.
put it in.
Sure. Okay, so it was in part 7 about physical accessibility. I think it would be beneficial to add that the room USG meetings are held in has either buttons to open the doors or a doorstop to enter / exit the space.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, and then the second one was, instead of a recording to watch later, all publicly open meetings can have live recordings and a chat function, so those who can't make it in person due to temporary inaccessibility, snow, rain, or injury, or disability-related situations such as fatigue, illness, etc., can still be an active member of USG and still have the opportunity to voice their opinions. It would be only for when necessary and not an option for every single meeting, so that it's not overused. If you need me to repeat it, I can.
Would you like starting from the top? No, because that's about meetings that are already virtual.
Yeah, this would be for in-person meetings, yeah, what we're literally in now. So just repeat that whole second thing, okay? So instead of a recording to watch later, all publicly open meetings can have live recordings and a chat function. I'll stop there for now. So those who can't make it in person due to temporary inaccessibility, and then I just put in parentheses, rain, snow, injury, etc. Close parentheses. disability-related situations. And then in parentheses, I said fatigue, illness, etc. Can still be an active member of USG and still have the opportunity to voice their opinions. Should the part about it only being when necessary be included or not?
I do like that part, yes.
Okay, so this would be only for only when necessary, and not an option for every meeting, so that it's not overused.
All right, any issues with how that is typed out? Okay, we have, yes.
It says all members in USG meeting must have live recordings and chat function for those who cannot attend in person can still actively participate. That's not really grammatical. Yes, there.
Thank you, good catch. Typos live in the bylaws forever, everyone. Okay, is there a second on this motion?
I second.
Second goes to Andrea. We will now move into questions, discussion on the motion. Yep, Caroline?
I was just wondering if we could extend Part D of this to include events as well as meetings for the buttons and the doorstop.
We're going to take that as friendly. Any other discussion on the motion specifically? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move to accept the amendment by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? All right, that amendment passes. We will now move back into discussion on the legislation as a whole. Are there any points of discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, I will move that the legislation pass by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? This legislation passes. Congratulations, units. All right, we did it, guys. No discussion items, announcements. We talked about this already, first last speaker election, April 8th. Finally, just want to say thank you to all of you who stuck it out for the whole meeting. It's that here are the people who are here very consistently, and that does not go unnoticed. It is really appreciated. So thank you all. I will close at 8:03. Have a good night.
Have a big real